Welcome to Four Quarter Lives, a podcast exploring the profound impact of longer lives and careers on everything: countries, companies, couples, and careers. And in this Season 10 series, I'm exploring what happens when longevity meets higher ed and how universities are adapting to aging societies. I'm Avivah Wittenberg-Cox, and on this week's Four Quarter Lives, I talk with Sara Singer, Faculty Director of Stanford's Distinguished Careers Institute, or DCI. Sara joined DCI in 2024 after serving as its research director, and she brings a unique lens from her scholarship in health policy and organizational leadership. In our conversation, she explains how DCI has become a jewel on campus at Stanford, shaping not only fellows at midlife, but also students, faculty, and the broader university community. We explore the program's three evidence-based pillars: renewing purpose, building community, and recalibrating wellness, and why intergenerational learning may be the real fountain of youth. Sara shares the program's origins with Phil Pizzo, how it continues to evolve, and what it takes to be ready for such a profound transition. If you're curious about the future of higher ed, the science of longevity, or your own next chapter, you'll find plenty of inspiration in this episode. Welcome, Sara Singer, to Four Quarter Lives.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, you took over as Stanford DCI's faculty director pretty recently in January 2024. But you were the research director just a bit before that. Tell us a little bit, maybe to start, how your journey and transition into that role has shaped or impacted the vision for the program, which we are now featuring the second in the series of these programs. The first one was Harvard, which was the first pioneer, and Stanford came in right behind then.
I'd be happy to. So I came from Harvard to Stanford and actually participated in the ALI program as a faculty member who had helped to organize one of their day-long sessions for their fellows. So when I came back to Stanford, I met with Phil Pizzo, who had founded DCI. He had previously been a friend and mentor, and he was the one who encouraged me to get involved with the program and ultimately to apply for a leadership role with DCI. I will say about the combination of being research director and faculty director is that it's been enormously helpful to serve in both those positions. The insight that I gain from the deep, the analysis of the interviews and of the survey data that we collect has been enormously helpful for understanding what's working, how it's working, what's not working, what we might need to change. And so I can bring that into my role as faculty director. What I would say about
maybe just a little bit, what's the difference between those two roles for listeners who are, semi-introduced to all these different programs?
Yes, of course. And it may not be true of many of the other programs. So from its founding, DCI has felt like it was very important to have a research component to demonstrate the impact and just to understand the program better. How it works and why it works. And so we have a very robust research program that involves surveying our fellows before and after they come, and then as alumni and interviewing them. And then we've added additional work around that. Fundamentally, the idea is to learn about the program as we go. We treat it as an experiment. And so that has been enormously helpful. The faculty director role is one of sort of setting strategic direction, being engaged with the rest of the university as a spokesperson and as a liaison to various different components on campus to make sure that DCI is known and well regarded and connected and giving to and drawing from the other elements around the university. Part of the idea is that this is one effort to create opportunities for transformation for people at midlife transition. And that we recognize that, we host 40 fellows a year. It's not nearly meeting the need as the population ages and becomes healthier in their longer lives. And so the more we can do to proliferate programs like ours, the better we think we're accomplishing our goals. With respect to vision, you asked about the journey, and I would say that for me anyway, the vision hasn't changed. I have always regarded or hoped that DCI would be regarded as an important program and a beloved asset, well integrated, completely integrated into the life of the university. And so for me, it's not just a transformation program for the lives of the fellows who participate in that program, but it should impact the students beneficially, for the students who interact with the fellows, for the campus as a whole. It should be beneficial because the university recognized the benefits of intergenerational and lifelong learning for fellows and the students, and because the fellows and our alumni are giving back in ways that are, beneficial to the university. For programs like DCI, the goal, as I said, was to spread this kind of program so that we're giving back in a kind of exponentially larger way, and the hope is that society as a whole benefits. So this spring had a meeting together. It was actually a party at the home of the president of the university, and he described DCI in his remarks as a jewel on campus. And I thought for the first time, we're really doing it. We're really accomplishing the vision of DCI. And I hope that that is the way we are regarded generally.
I couldn't agree more that the importance in an aging society to start getting universities to start focusing on older demographics. And these programs are certainly the cutting edge. So before we go deeper into what the program actually is and how it differentiates from others, maybe we can just briefly go back to its origin story. So DCI was created, I think, by Phil Pizzo back in 2014. And I'm always curious, each program kind of emerges from a particular individual, a department that feeds into the culture of the program. Can you just tell us a little bit about where it came from?
You're right. It was founded by Phil Pizzo, who had retired previously as dean of the medical school. And Phil is actually the poster child for these kinds of programs because he has intermittently transitioned several times from dean of the medical school to leader of the DCI program. And now he's pursuing, after retiring from DCI, he is pursuing another degree in rabbinic studies. So the man is constantly repotting, and he believes deeply in the vision of this program and the need for people to have opportunities for transformation. So it was very much founded with his own image in mind, I think. And we continue to think of it as a mid to later career transformation kind of program. What I would say is that we've been refining our understanding and gaining greater clarity around what that is and can be. So for us, one important refinement of that is that it's not a transformation program for anybody. It's really important to be a transformation program for people who are ready to make that transition. So they have not only kind of let their professional role behind, but they are open to new possibilities for themselves. And so really kind of honing in on that piece has been important. And I think the other big refinement for us is that it has been the recognition and the operationalization of this experiment in intergenerational and lifelong learning, designed to demonstrate the benefits of DCI and DCI-like programs, not just on the fellows, but on the students and faculty and the university community writ large. And so, as I said, from the beginning, we were set up with a strong research component, but it was when I became the research director that we started to really draw upon that data and use it as a resource for informing what we do as an organization. And that's been a really important transition.
So I can't resist to ask a little bit, what have you found? Your own scholarship spans health policy, team organization, system design. What is DCI teaching us? It emanated, I think, what is interesting too for me is it emanated from the medical school. So it had a strong sort of health component to it, which a lot of programs don't. And I'm wondering what your research is revealing about its impacts.
Well, so let me say a word about my research, since you asked about that first. And it is true. It was my research interest that drew me to DCI. And what I tried to do in my research is to understand how organizations and leaders can impact people's health. And I've been increasingly interested in solutions outside medical care, since plenty of research suggests that medical care contributes about 10% to health differences for people. And it's factors like kind of can we influence their behaviors, and can we affect social circumstances in which they live that contribute much more? So DCI was presented to me as this new strategy for promoting longer, healthier lives, like a health span, extending the health span, and I wanted to see how that could work. So DCI has been shaped with these evidence-based pillars for promoting a healthier lifespan. And our focus we have 3 pillars. Our focuses are on kind of renewing purpose, building community, and recalibrating wellness. And, it's those 3 things that we try to demonstrate impact on, and we have done and are doing that. So some of the research shows things like we have improved, our fellows experience an improved sense of purpose. We show a 10 percentage point improvement in those sorts of measures. They have experience of more and deeper friendships, 5 percentage point kinds of changes in that. And we've also demonstrated, we've recently added a wearables and biometrics kind of study. We've demonstrated that they walk more and they do more moderate to vigorous exercise. We've done a faculty survey. Actually, it's in process now, but we have preliminary data that shows that confirmed our hopes. Most faculty are deeply in favor of DCI, and they see real benefits to having DCI fellows in their classrooms, which is an important aspect of what we wanted to do. And then mostly we've tried to understand how DCI impacts fellows, and we've done that through analysis of their interviews and what they tell us about their experience. And they tell us things, it always fills my heart with glee to read their interviews. They tell us things like DCI has reignited their love of learning, or it's opened them up to new kinds of people and new ways of thinking and new ideas. And, some people have described the DCI as their fountain of youth. By exposing them again to the young people, it has really kind of just made them feel younger. And so that's the kind of thing that we learn from our research.
That's fantastic. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how this program differentiates from the now flourishing range of programs on offer in the space. I mean, you've been very successful in seeding the idea. Then I'd like to ask you to dig down into those 3 pillars a little bit for listeners.
It's an interesting question that you ask, because I think I would tend toward what we have in common more than how we differentiate, because I am just thrilled that there are increasing numbers of these programs and that organizations are picking up on the idea to do this sort of thing. So we differentiate because we are a full-time in-person program for a year. Some are shorter. Some are online, some are hybrid, and those sorts of differences. But fundamentally, we're all trying to provide opportunities for transformation. I think, having these pillars, I think the pillars are generally accepted among these sorts of programs. We really kind of lean in and describe the evidence behind them, and make it clear how foundational they are for us. So I'll just review a little bit. The renewing purpose is really about enabling people to find their sense, and encouraging people, they're doing it on their own, to find their sense of purpose, what's deeply meaningful for them. It requires kind of shaking off their professional persona and those professional goals to open themselves up to kind of what's really important for them. And that's hard work. But we know that sense of purpose is associated with longer, healthy lives. Building community, it's often the program highlight for people, and it's sometimes unexpected for our fellows, but it's a huge gift for people. Our average age is around 60. So it's this huge gift for people to renew their set of friendships and to build deeper, stronger social connections at that stage of life. At the stage of life when we're losing our connections because we've been so focused on our professional work, where we've lost touch with people. This is like being back in college again. I mean, you are talking to these people and sharing experiences in ways that you did when you were building those original friendships. And we know that social connections are crucial for mental and physical well-being. And then, the last of our pillars is this recalibrating wellness. And by that, we mean not just physical well-being, because lots of our fellows come in, they're pretty health-oriented and have healthy practices, but we're talking about their kind of mental well-being, their ability to kind of find balance in their lives, and their spiritual health. And it's those aspects of wellness that are often not as developed as physical well-being. And part of what's important about these three pillars is the way that they are all individually beneficial, but also mutually reinforcing. And we try to operationalize those pillars by our programming. And, so we send our fellows into the classroom and they're working with students, and that's part of how they explore what they're learning about. But we also have specific programming that we offer for DCI fellows. And some of them are probably unique. So you mentioned our memoir writing class. It's one of the ways that we encourage reflection from our fellows. And the other one I think that is tremendously important is our program called Life Transformation Reflections, where we ask every fellow, or we offer the opportunity for every fellow to speak to the cohort about what has truly mattered in their lives and made them who they are. So it's part of this strategy for reflection on and meaning finding for them. And lots of what we do through our other program is kind of designed to reinforce that. So I hope other programs are doing things like it, if not, the same things, but it is probably part of what makes DCI so special.
I think so. And I think the culture around the sun, the California context probably helps, as does, I think, one of the other, I understand perhaps distinguishing features is how many partners join in to the DCI program, which I think is a little bit higher perhaps than some of the others.
Maybe so. From its outset, we have encouraged couples to come into the program. And one of the very important aspects of DCI and our partners program is that we have from the outset treated our partners as fellows. There is been no differentiation once they are admitted to the program. They are fully carrying members of the program, so much so that this year we're contemplating a transition to just calling everybody fellows. We still want to encourage couples to come because it is a transformation program. You want to have your partner along for that ride. And so it's very helpful to go through it together. They're each individually exploring what is meaningful for them, but doing it together can be transformational for their partnership as well as for themselves as individuals. And honestly, sometimes the partners add a sparkle to the cohort. They are more often from less traditional backgrounds, which we try to cultivate. And we've been doing that actually through developing our ability to provide scholarships for people who may not be able to do that. That's another strategy for bringing people in from diverse professional backgrounds. But having those differences within the cohort, just adds a depth and importance to what we're doing. People have told us in those research interviews that they're engaging with people, and they mean not just the cohort members, also obviously the students, but the meeting people from different backgrounds has really opened up their way of thinking and the way and what they find meaningful for them. They often come with one idea and they leave with something totally different, which is so beautiful to see.
So a real transformation. And I think the couple thing is brilliant because, of course, it integrates a whole of life, the personal and the professional, and doesn't make it two parallel journeys into the latter half of life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's brilliant. Okay, give me a little bit on, because it's such an important part also of the DCI program, of the intergenerational learning and how much fellows work with undergrads and how you orchestrate that. How does it work?
It is a really important aspect of what they do in this, fountain and youth and the light of learning that turns on and all that. This comes from our focus on intergenerational learning. So we throw our fellows into the classrooms. We have some orientation where they're meeting each other virtually over the summer. In fact, it's happening even as we speak right now. But they have an orientation the week before campus starts, and we help guide them so that they understand and feel comfortable with being a student again and all of the new systems that they have to engage with on campus. But, the day fall quarter starts, they are back in the classroom, and they take relatively full schedules. We suggest that they don't overprogram themselves because, like students, they're going to find endless opportunities outside the classroom too. But we tell them take the classes. We tell them to go speak to their professors, to ask the professors how they want to be engaged. And most of the faculty tell them that they want them to kind of fully immerse in the programs. That means doing the reading, speaking up in the class. If it's a class that offers participation as part of the grade, often they're asked to wait and speak, later. But they're encouraged to speak. They're encouraged to participate, often required to participate in the group projects if they want to be part of the classroom. Some write the papers, some take the exams. I encourage them to do that because I feel like fully immersing in that classroom experience is from what they derive that benefit that we hear about, that fountain of youth. They don't all do that. But part of being in the classroom teaches them how much they have to learn from the students in those classes, because those students, they've grown up differently. They have a completely different way of thinking, different ways of approaching the world, different sensibilities about things. Yes, the DCI fellows bring their experience and their perspective, and it is deeply valued by the students on campus, but they don't always, and even if they talk about it, they don't necessarily fully register and embrace just how much they're going to learn from the students. And so that part of intergenerational learning, it's like mutual learning, is what's really important about it. So we do that through throwing them into the classroom. And then the other thing we do is we offer them, it's more than 90 events a year with different groups on campus. We are now discovered on campus when we announce the new fellows on our website. The students immediately sort of lean in, they find out who they want to reach out to, and the students are invited to reach out to individual fellows. But campus groups, student groups, and organizations on campus, they ask to do programming together with DCI. And so we have, as I say, about 90 plus opportunities for fellows and alumni to engage with student groups on campus. And it exposes them to all kinds of opportunities, from our Knight Hennessy scholars who are, incredible, going to be leaders who they deeply engage with and work to help mentor through the projects that the Knight Hennessy Fellows are focused on engaging, to, Women's on Board, to the students who are coming into campus, making a transition from another university into this campus. They do special work opportunities with them, but it's a kind of bewildering array. Students who are specializing in sustainability or health or longevity. There are opportunities for our fellows to sit on panels, to go to parties. It's a wide range. And it's those opportunities that enable them to establish connections with students who want to go deeper and have a more consistent or longer-term relationship, or engage them in the specific projects or opportunities, companies that they're developing or the like. And so our fellows are engaged and enthusiastically so in the intergenerational opportunities on campus. And we've engaged our alumni now because there are so many students who want to be involved. There are ongoing opportunities for them to do that.
So I'm just curious if you have a measure also of how many of the fellows actually hire or work with undergrads afterwards in their projects and things like that. Is that
We have so far, so this is a great question, and it's one of those things that we would like to measure. We started thinking about those kinds of metrics. We want to measure how many of our fellows are participating with students in initiatives, how much time they are giving to those kinds of initiatives, so we can kind of quantify those things. We haven't done that yet. It's on our radar very much to do. So we have anecdotal evidence of fellows who are working with students on various projects. In fact, we give our fellows an opportunity to stay on for up to 3 quarters. We're now calling these focused learning opportunities. So if they work with a faculty member or work with an organization or group on campus, particularly fulfilling, and extra time on campus where they have a need to take some additional courses, but would be working on that focused opportunity, we give them that opportunity. And so some of our fellows are doing that for second year. Others previously have started and sustained companies with fellows. I'm sorry, with students. The fellows have done that with the students.
So you've been, the DCI program has been running now for more than a decade. So you have several hundred alumni globally. As you look ahead, How do you see the program scaling? And you've talked about it being the jewel in the crown at Stanford. So what is the impact you're hoping that it has on the broader university system?
Yeah. So growth is an important question that we talk about a lot. Yep. And we feel like it's important to maintain the size of our program and not to grow it too much. A little fluctuation is okay, but on campus, we want DCI to stay at about the same size because we think
which is what, about 40?
About 40 fellows a year.
Is that including partners?
Including the partners. Including the partners. So because we think it's important to have a reasonable impact, a reasonable footprint on campus, but we do want to grow the impact. And I think the chief opportunities for us to grow the impact and the ways we think about that is through our alumni who find all kinds of creative and impactful ways to be on and off campus, to pursue their sense of purpose and meaning. So some of them are teaching courses, some of them are have taken on positions. Our executive director, Katie Connor, is an example of that. She's now our executive director, but was one of our fellows. But some of our fellows find work opportunities on campus. Many of them are participating as members of various advisory councils or boards around campus. And then they're doing all of those similar sorts of things off campus in the community or the communities in which they live. And so through our alumni programming and through our encouragement of our alumni to find their meaning and purpose, we hope to have expanded impact. And then the second way is, as we've talked about, through this proliferation. So we believe that helping other opportunities and organizations to create programs with similar goals who can serve more people is part of our mission, and we take it really seriously. DCI helped to found the Nexel Collaborative, and it's got a growing number of other organizations. One of our staff members supports that program, and we do what we can to share information and to encourage others to take this on.
And we have a separate podcast with Nexel, so we can hear a little bit how they've been doing all that experience sharing among schools, which has been exemplary. It's been really terrific. Okay, so perhaps just my last question for listeners who are listening to a whole series of schools presenting, and you said you really want people who come to your program to be ready. And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit. What does it mean to be ready to go to DCI, and what kind of profile might you be looking for? What's the ideal DCI candidate?
That's a good question. It's often hard to know yourself if you're ready, but I think we're getting better at it through interviewing people. Often it takes time to let go of your professional persona and the goals that you had as a professional, to think again and more broadly about what you might want to do next, and to be really ready to explore and experiment. So when we hear people talking about kind of a continuation of what they've been doing, it's a red flag for us. And so we look for this openness and willingness to not rely on their, huge set of accomplishments when they come here, that they're really interested in engaging and learning and exploring. So
starting something new and being open to a beginner's mind and starting from scratch.
But I also wanted to say that transition is equally important when people do come here as fellows. And it's frankly the hardest thing that we do. It's the hardest part of any of these sorts of programs, and part because we're as successful as we are, people love being part of a university campus. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
They want to stay here, and we need to help them move on. So we're trying to design that transition part into the program and to have it be a focus. So, we have a fair about transition opportunities in the middle of the year. We have these focused learning opportunities that I mentioned. We have all sorts of alumni programming that is getting them to think about the opportunities that they have to come on. Even before they come in, we have them think about their purpose and to select a purpose pathway, not because it's something that we require them to remain committed to, but we want them thinking about what's next from the very outset. So we are looking, the ideal fellow is someone who is ready for that transition. So that's the ideal applicant, I would say. And then the ideal fellow is someone who is willing to kind of take on that transition and to explore, experiment, and take the leap.
I often think these transitions, I'm a Harvard ALI fellow, and I've been watching, all these programs for a number of years. I often find what's interesting to me is these midlife transitions take a lot of time. They take more time, I think, than people usually expect. And I'm just wondering, to close, do you think it's really feasible in a year to actually do these transitions? Or is this really a way to start on a new path, build a community of like-minded souls to get you started, but that actually it's going to take a little while to redirect and pivot?
Absolutely. You're so right. So people ask me, often the applicants will ask me when we're doing an interview, what do I consider to be a successful fellow? And what I think about is, or what I tell them is, sort of success comes from understanding yourself better, understanding what's meaningful for you, what would provide for you a sense of purpose, so that you leave DCI with a new lens for evaluating the kinds of opportunities you will invariably have as you proceed, so that they can say yes to the things that enhance their meaning and say no to the things, or to walk away from the things that don't fulfill them in that way. So it's really about a lifelong transformation that we're trying to give them. We're not asking them, it's not about finding a purpose. It's not about finding the next thing for them to do. It's about understanding their sense of purpose. And that's really different. It is finding for themselves the lens with which they will look at what they take on for the rest of their lives. And that can also continue to change over time. I think that's a really important aspect of success and what we hope for our fellows.
Absolutely. So in conclusion, I'm just curious, you've taken this on. It will probably impact your own life in a lot of ways, in your own thinking about longer lives and careers. What's been its biggest impact on you, this position and all this research that you're doing?
Well, you're absolutely right. I definitely had the idea of this being a vicarious experience for me as I was taking on this role. And it has. I have, I think about where I derive my meaning and if I am doing things that are aligned with that. And I think, for me, for now, the work still resonates. I have much to do to find ways of impacting people's health as individuals and as older adults. So I'm still deeply engaged in that. But I am still, crazy about the DCI program. I believe strongly that, retirement isn't something that makes sense anymore. With more people who are living longer, creating the opportunity at midlife to find new meaning for people in their lives, to make deeper friendships and to focus on how to stay healthy as we age isn't just a gift, it's an imperative. And so I'm all about trying to make that happen.
Sara Singer, thank you so much for your time and all your efforts for DCI and for making midlife transition programs a reality globally. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We will, all of us at DCI will keep doing what we do.
For more thinking about the impact of our 4-quarter lives, you can read my column at Forbes and subscribe to my Elderberries newsletter on Substack. Let's design lives that aren't just longer, but better.